It's 7 o'clock in the evening on Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. I'd like to call the organizational meeting of the Colerain Township Board of Trustees to order. Mr. Baker, if you would please call the roll.
Mr. Rajagopal.
Aye, here.
Mr. Unger.
Here.
Mr. Waller.
Here. I'd ask that you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for a moment of meditation, I'd ask that everyone here and our viewers would just pray for our great nation, and there are better days ahead. Thank you. I am the current president of the board, but it is time for the election of a 2021 president. So we will take nominations for the election of president, and I would like to nominate Raj Rajagopal as president for the 2021 year.
Thank you, Dan.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? I think it's important in this form of government with 3 trustees that the presidency and the vice presidency would rotate so that each member, since we're all 3 elected, would get a chance to serve in each position. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, is there any other nominees for president? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote for the election of Raj.
Mr. Rajagopal.
Aye.
Mr. Unger.
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye.
And since we're still on the election of, now comes nominations for the election of vice president, I would like to nominate Mr. Matt Waller to be the vice president of the board.
I'll second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any discussion? If Matt is elected and with Raj being remote, and if Matt's election carries through, I guess he would run the rest of this meeting. Is there any other discussion?
None.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Hearing none, Mr. Baker, please call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal.
Aye.
Mr. Unger.
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Unger.
And so I would ask Jeff, would it be proper for Matt to run the meeting and Raj's?
I think Raj, if
Are
he
you
wants.
able to run the meeting from your house, Raj? Or would you rather that Matt ran it?
Since you are already there, you want to go ahead and continue?
Bless you.
Meeting?
I think Matt should probably run it because we have all the materials here. Is that okay, Raj?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Waller, you will be,
Well, we can just stay here. can't we?
Okay.
Yeah.
I will pass the gavel over
The
to
baton,
you.
okay. Thank you, sir.
And you can go ahead and run the items.
Okay, now we'll go to the organizational items. The first item is a resolution authorizing the transfer of funds.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Waller, Mr. Rajagopal, and Mr. Unger. Happy New Year. The first organizational item we have tonight is a resolution for you to consider that would authorize the transfer of funds from the general fund and also from the fire district fund. The amounts are listed and the destination funds are listed in the agenda packet and the resolution. Recommendation is to approve.
I would motion for the resolution authorizing the transfer of funds.
Motion by Unger. Are there any seconds?
I second it.
Second by Rajagopal for the resolution authorizing the transfer of funds. Any discussion?
None from me.
Yes, I have a few questions, Mr. Jeff Mills. If you look on the items, I go with the number 2, $238,634.56 to the zoning fund. what is that? What do you mean by zoning fund?
Sure. So in our budget, the township budget is broken down into different funds. There's the general fund, and then the police district fund, and the fire district fund. And in this case, you're referring to Fund 2181, the zoning fund. It's from that fund that salaries and expenses related to zoning are appropriated, and you have, ooh, gosh, back to this trick chair. And so the Board of Trustees has appropriated a certain amount of money from the zoning fund. However, the zoning department doesn't generate enough revenues in order to cover its expenses, and so the zoning fund, along with all of these other funds, are subsidized by the general fund. So in the same way that the park fund and the community center fund and et cetera, they don't generate the revenues to support their operations, and so the general, a transfer from the general fund is necessary.
So I have a point of point of procedure, I guess. I just received a text from somebody that said that Raj cannot be heard at all.
I'm sorry, what?
I just received a text from someone that said that you cannot be heard on the, just only Raj, no one else, cannot be heard on the simulcast.
I mean, I'm getting him in the recording, and we tested that the sound was going out.
Is there a way we can hike the volume on them, or?
Well, reboot your, ask them to reboot their screen.
Okay, so please reboot your screen because my voice is coming through, I know.
I didn't mute at all. You want me to double check?
No, we can hear you.
We can hear you. It's the viewers that have said that they can't hear you. So perhaps we'll find I'm told that it tested and that it tested fine, so it may be just that the viewer needs to reboot a screen. Yeah, I'm sorry for the interruption, but I wanted to make sure that was. Mr. Mills, do you have additional information for Mr. Rajagopal's question, or I think
No, Mr. Rajagopal, did that answer your question?
Yes. You can explain to people that what zoning fund. Hey, Jeff, I got another one. Number 4th in the items, $306,800 to the general bond retirement parts fund. What's that, please?
Sure. So that is a, oh, and now I'm getting some feedback here. Okay. Okay, Mr. Rajagopal, those are debt service funds. So our debt service that pays for the retirement of a bond is paid out of Fund 3102. The only revenue that is booked by that fund is this transfer from the general fund. So we're paying off debt service in that instance to pay for our parks. And it's the same with the Fund 3103, which is paying for our public works building at 4160 Springdale Road. And then Fund 3105 is debt service to pay for the Veterans Memorial.
All right, finally, I gotta go on the items number 6. You got the principal payment for the bond. What is the right now the township remaining balance on the bonds?
So I don't know off the top of my head what the current balance is on those bonds. I do know that that we are nearing the end of all of our debt service. So I believe it's 2022 when our debt service is retired.
Well, that's good news. So this $176,800 is like a yearly payments?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So that's good news for the township. And by 2022, that our debts will be paid off.
Very nearly, yes. It's incredible, especially when you compare us to peer communities. We are very much debt-free.
Very good. That's a good news for the 2021.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sure.
Are there any other questions, comments?
Not from me.
All right, are there any more questions or comments?
Not from me.
All right, Mr. Baker, we'll move to Vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. The second item, item B, the resolution authorizing administrator to execute contracts with a value equal to or less than $10,000. Mr. Mills?
Yes, sir. This item is a housekeeping item. Each year, in order to provide efficient service and to be able to execute operations, we ask that the board grant the township administrator the authority to execute contracts under $10,000 or less. It has been the practice of the township, because of our commitment to transparency, to place all of those contracts on the consent agenda so that the Board of Trustees is very clear about what contracts have been signed. So the recommendation is to adopt.
Are there any motions?
I motion that we.
I motion to adopt that resolution.
All right, we have a motion by Rajagopal to adopt a resolution authorizing administrator to execute contracts with a value equal to or less than $10,000. Do we have a second?
And I will second it.
Second by Unger. Discussion, please.
None from me.
Jeff, you mentioned about all the items in the 10,000, what you're going to authorize, but you still come to the attention to the board at the board meeting and the list of consent items, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it is still come to the board attention and public know where the money goes to, how you're spending it.
Yes, sir. And that's again, that's one of the things that I pride our operation on, our organization on. We're very committed to transparency, and I would challenge folks to find another community that puts every single contract that they sign on a public document and in an agenda packet. I think it's unique and speaks to our dedication to transparency.
Are there any additional comments?
None from me.
All right, Mr. Baker?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. So the resolution authorizing administration to execute contracts with a value equal to or less than $10,000 passes by a vote of 3-0. Item C, motion to authorize the administrator to sign purchase orders equal to or less than $2,500. Mr. Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Waller. This item is another housekeeping matter. State law allows trustees to delegate the authority to sign purchase orders with a value equal to or less than $10,000 to the township administrator. In the past 2 years, the board has chose to delegate their authority to sign purchase orders with a value equal to or less than $2,500. It is my belief that it would be more efficient if the PO authorization matched the contract authorization, but that has been a point of disagreement here in the past 2 years.
Yes.
So I put 2,500 on the agenda.
I would motion we authorize the administrator to sign purchase orders equal to or less than $2,500.
Are there any seconds? Motion by Unger, second by Rajagopal, to authorize the administrator to sign purchase orders equal to or less than $2,500. Discussion, please.
Yes, I think that it's important because ultimately the three trustees are responsible for the township. It requires, to those watching at home, what this requires is at least two, and hopefully all three trustees to sign any purchase order in excess of $2,500. That has been the practice of this board, and I agree with it.
Any additional comments?
No.
Mr. Baker?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. So the motion to authorize the administrator to sign purchase orders equal to or less than $2,500 passes 3-0. Item D, a motion to appoint members to the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments, OKI Intermodal Coordinating Committee, known as the ICC. Mr. Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Waller. Yes, this is recommend approval of a motion to appoint Mike Iona, our planning director, to serve on the Intermodal Coordinating Committee and represent the township there, and also to recommend Mr. Weckbach's appointment as the alternate to the ICC.
I motion that we do such a thing.
Motion by Unger. Are there any seconds?
I second it.
Second by Roger Cabal, to appoint members to the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments, OKI, Intermodal Coordinating Committee, ICC. Any discussion?
I think they'll both do a good job.
Congratulations to them.
I think they'll do well as well. So, Mr. Baker.
Mr. Rajagopal? Aye. Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. So the motion to appoint members of Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments, OKI Intermodal Coordinating Committee, ICC, passes 3-0. Item E, the motion to authorize purchase of capital equipment vehicles according to the attached Schedule A. Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Waller. Yes, this is a motion that authorizes the purchase of capital equipment. The Board of Trustees at their December meeting adopted a temporary appropriations resolution, which appropriated the funds to make all of these capital purchases. In years past, we've brought these in ones and twos to the board, and it is our intent to be more efficient. And in that regard, we're bringing you the entire list of capital purchases that was approved in the appropriations for your consent and authorization to purchase in an amount not to exceed the listed amounts and from the budget lines that are listed in Schedule A. Recommendation is to adopt.
I motion that we authorize the purchase of capital equipment and vehicles according to the attached schedule, which can be found in our agenda.
Motion by Unger. Any seconds?
I second it.
Second by Roger Cabal. Comments?
None from me.
I'd just like to point out, I think this is fantastic that we're putting together a schedule capital purchases. I think that the one thing that government incentivizes people to do is to kick the can, and we're putting it down in writing that we're not going to kick the can. And the last thing I want to do whenever my time is up at this dais is to hand somebody a list of backdated things that need to be purchased. I think it's a kind of a responsibility of the office, and I'm certainly happy that we've gone to that. I don't know anybody else that has that extensive amount of planning at the township level. A township this large, I think smaller, it's certainly easier to do, and sometimes you just, at the smaller level, don't have the money. But I am thankful that we have this. Any other comments?
None from me.
It is good that we stay focused on our the budget and like 21, what's the goals oriented towards to, and stay on the budget so that we follow those guidelines. It's like a tool we use for the rest of the year on spending. So there's good budget tables that you created. Thank you.
All right, seeing no additional comments, Mr. Baker?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. So the motion to authorize purchases of capital equipment and vehicles according to the attached Schedule A passes 3-0. On to item F. Motion to approve 2021 regular meeting dates for the Board of Trustees and rules for special meetings. Mr. Mills.
Thank you, Mr. Waller. One final thought on that capital plan. I wanted to thank Jeff Weckbach for his work on this. I don't know that the township, to echo your point, Mr. Waller, I don't know that the township has ever had such a comprehensive approach to capital. But for the item at hand, the regular meeting dates for 2021 are recommended to be very similar to 2020. That meaning we have one meeting a month on the second Tuesday of each month in January, February, March, November, and December, and then 2 meetings a month in March through October on the second and fourth Tuesdays of those months. Recommendation is to adopt.
Any motions?
I motion that we adopt the 2021 regular meeting dates.
And may I add one more thing? This also sets the rules for special meetings. So the way that we will notice special meetings, should they come up outside of this list, would be with 24 hours of prior notice at least, and that notice will be sent to the news media, specifically Cincinnati Enquirer, and as always, we put it up on our website and put it out through Circle. So we have a motion by Mr. Unger to approve the 2021
2021 regular meeting dates and Board of Trustees rules for special meetings. Are there any seconds? I will second it. Motion by Unger, second by Wallert. Any discussion?
Yes, yes, there is discussion. With respect to Mr. Mills' comments, I don't know that that this board, the previous board or the current board, has ever had a meeting with 24 hours notice. Everything we've done since the second meeting in 2018 was noticed at least by Friday at 5 o'clock for a Tuesday meeting. That's correct. There might have been a Friday at 5:30 in there, but it was always by the close of business on Friday. And we have our agenda out almost 96 hours ahead of time, which is more than any other government entity that I'm aware of in Hamilton County. So, which is great. And if there would really have to be an occasion that we would have to have a meeting within 24 hours, and it would probably be an emergency that we didn't want to have. So, so I'm proud that we've always had our meetings announced at least 4 days ahead of time and had our agendas published for the public to read in full 4 days ahead of time.
Thank you, sir. Any additional comments? None from I. Mr. Baker.
Mr. Rajagopal,
Aye.
Mr. Unger,
Aye.
Mr. Waller.
Aye. So the motion to approve the 2021 regular meeting dates for the Board of Trustees and rules for special meetings passes 3-0. Item G, motion to increase part-time Department of Fire and EMS employee hourly pay rate. And I imagine we will hear from Chief.
Yes, sir.
I second the motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're getting an introduction here.
Okay.
Good evening to the board, Fiscal Officer Baker and Administrator Mills and those watching virtually. So I'm here tonight to respectfully request a rate increase for the part-time employees. That rate increase would be 3%. They are not a part of any bargaining unit. It has been 3 years since their previous pay raise, so that would have been January of 2018. And in doing so, I've thought very deeply about the impact to the taxpayers, likewise to our bi-weekly payroll, therefore our yearly payroll, and then the next 5 years. In addition, we looked at the Southwest Ohio salary survey to see where we were at within those bands, and none of those pay rates are at the upper tier, they're all within the middle tier. And so an example would be looking at that salary survey. The low pay for a firefighter EMT is $11.25. The high rate of pay is $20. We're looking at $14.94. If you look at a firefighter paramedic, the low end of the pay scale is $12. The high end is $21.86, and we're looking at $16.41. And so those pay rates are within a middle tier. And so, unless there's further discussion about this, I respectfully request the board approve that pay raise, please.
Are there any motions at this time?
I'll motion that we would increase part-time Department of Fire and EMS hourly employee pay rate as requested by the fire chief.
Seconds? Motion by Unger, second by Rajagopal. Discussion.
Yes, Chief. So what would that make the amount? Did you say $14.94?
So for a firefighter EMT, it would be $14.94. For a firefighter paramedic, it would be $16.41. Now we scale our pay a little bit according to qualifications. So in essence, what we're looking at here is for a firefighter EMT, that low end of certifications, $14.94. For a firefighter paramedic apparatus operator, it would be $17.84 an hour. And so, moving through there, and a firefighter EMT apparatus operator, $15.46, special projects manager, $15.76, paramedic, $15.97, firefighter paramedic, $16.41, fleet maintenance technician, $16.81, and then part-time division chief would be $22.24 an hour.
Great. Yeah, that sounds that doesn't sound like a whole lot for what they're doing, but I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. The reason I ask is because I've received some questions about that, and so Mr. Baker, when you do the minutes for this meeting, if it could reflect those rates, that would be great. So it's memorialized in our minutes. That is all my discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Unger. Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Okay, no, do you have any discussion? Sorry.
We are still in discussion. Hey, Chief, Chief, I wanted, is that, that's a minimal raise. And you did a good study on the comparative, what other departments are doing, paying the amount of work our responders people are doing is amazing work. It's incomparable with other departments. It's number one, okay? And it's a minimal raise they get, they deserve it. And they showed they did a fantastic job in 2020. It's you cannot speak by the words. The sacrifice they did, that tells you for our township. I think they well-deserved raise. Thank you for doing for these workers.
Thank you. Chief, I know you and I had a discussion about this earlier. I guess there's never really a good time to kind of push for a raise. I'll point out that these folks haven't even gotten cost of living in 2 years. So that this 3% reflects a nominal cost of living. And the concern I spoke to you about is the concern that people will see that a fire levy passed and then we offer a raise for part-timers. And I just want to point out to kind of maybe advocate against that point is that, look, not only have it just been 2 years, not only are they not towards the middle upper part of the band, but there's a cost to employees, and when we lose them, there's a cost of onboarding. And when we spoke, you round figure estimated it could be up to $7,000 or $8,000 an employee. If this keeps folks here, we pay that money back. We earn that money back, and the consistency in the department, I think, is helpful in how we respond to emergencies. So for that reason, even though I tend to be a little bit on the cheap side, for that reason, I plan on supporting this. Are there any additional comments?
None from me.
Mr. Baker?
Mr. Rajagopal? Aye. Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. The motion to increase part-time Department of Fire and EMS hourly employee pay rate passes 3-0. Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you, and this will be effective January 24th, 2021, so it gives payroll a couple weeks to get things in line.
Okay.
But thank you on behalf of myself and the fire department.
Thank you for the work the fire department does. You do outstanding work. The next item, item H, motion to approve the continuation of employment and payment of part-time employees at the current rate. Mr. Mills?
Thank you, Mr. Waller. Yes, so each year the board has to make a motion to continue to employ part-time employees and set their rates. We are asking to keep all other rates the same. Recommendation is to adopt the motion.
Any motions?
I would motion that we approve the continuation of employment and payment of part-time employees at the current rates.
And I will second. Discussion.
None from me. It's just approving everybody for the year of 21.
Yes, sir.
All right, I have no comments. In that case, Mr. Baker?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. So the motion to approve the continuation of employment and payment of part-time employees at the current rate passes 3-0. Moving on to item in the agenda, item I, the motion to appoint representative to Solid Waste Management District Policy Committee. Mr. Mills.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We have a position on the Solid Waste Management District Policy Committee, and for the last, let's see, 1, 2, 3 years, Mr. Rajagopal has served as our representative to that committee. So the recommendation is to adopt a motion to appoint Mr. Rajagopal to that committee again.
Any motions?
I motion that we appoint Raj Rajagopal as the representative to the Solid Waste Management District Policy Committee.
And I will second that motion. Discussion.
I think Raj has done a fantastic job and has been a marvelous diplomat for our organization.
Thank you, thank you very much, board. We'll continue to bring in good things for the Colerain Township. Work with the Rumpke majorly.
All right, so Mr. Baker, we will move to a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. So the motion to appoint Representative Rajagopal, Mr. Rajagopal as representative to the Solid Waste Management District Policy Committee passes 3-0. Item J, the motion to appoint members to the Board of Zoning Appeals and Zoning Commission. Mr. Mills.
Yes, sir. The final motion for this evening's organizational meeting is a motion to appoint Mark Fearing as the primary board member for a 5-year term on the Zoning Commission. The term would expire December 31st, 2025. Also to reappoint Mr. Tom Westfall as an alternate board member for a 2-year term. His term would expire December 31st, 2022. Also to reappoint Mr. Mark Shupp as a primary board member on the Board of Zoning Appeals to a 5-year term. This term would expire December 31st, 2025. And finally, an appointment of Mr. James Sido into an alternate board member position for a 2-year term. This term would expire December 31st, 2022. Recommendation is to adopt this motion.
Mr. Mills, we're doing this as one whole, almost like a consent item motion. Is that appropriate, or does it need to be done individually?
I think it can be done as a slate.
Okay. All right, any motions? Seeing none, I'll motion to appoint members of the Board of Zoning Appeals and Zoning Commission as provided. A second.
I will second it.
Okay, motion by Waller, second by Unger. Any discussion?
Yes, thanks, Matt. I want to ask Jeff, the rationale you mentioned about there's a process you're supposed to conduct an application interview process. I got a lot of concern from the residents. This same topic, I brought it up last year, same time when you made an appointment. Every applicant that apply for the job had the opportunity to have the interview?
So that responsibility was delegated to our planning director, Mr. Mike Iona. I believe that he reviewed every application. I'm not certain that every single person that applied was given an interview. There may have been an instance where it was clear. In fact, we've had people apply that don't live in Colerain Township, and there are others that it's clear would not necessarily have the background that's needed on these technical boards.
Okay, you said about 5 people apply for the jobs, right? For this zoning?
Yes.
Okay, do you have the names of the people who applied?
Not in front of me, but I can get that to you. And let me see if I can find it real quick.
That's in our meeting packet as well with the...
Oh, sure. Well, if 5 people applied, my guess would be that there was Mr. Fearing applied, Mr. Westfall applied, Mr. Shupp applied, Mr. Sido applied, and Mrs. Wright applied.
Okay, so there was a process. You follow a certain process. They followed. I mean.
Yes, there's an application that. Yep, there's an application process whereby you fill out a board and commission application that was adopted by the Board of Trustees, and then folks that are interested fill out that application, and then there is an interview. And I know for a fact that all 5 of those applicants received an interview.
I have no comments.
No additional comments? Mr. Baker?
Mr. Rajagopal?
Aye.
Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. The motion to appoint members of the Board of Zoning Appeals and Zoning Commission passes 3-0. I understand that before we go to adjournment, Mr. Unger has something.
Thank you, Matt. We starting 2021, and I certainly long for the day, and I hope that it is soon and quick that we can have returned to having our meetings here in full in the trustee chamber and go back to having an audience. And I've about reached wit's end with not having folks in here. I've stated that several times over the last several months. And you can go to the grocery store, you can go a lot of places. We've got the chairs spread out, and I just hope that someday soon we're able to start having our full meetings back here in the chambers. Sometimes it's not the most comfortable thing, but I think local government works best with participation of citizens, and that's my statement. I don't know if Raj has anything to say, or...
Mr. Rajagopal?
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for giving me, you and Matt, opportunity to serve as the president of the board in 2021. I think I even mentioned to Jeff Mills many times, even today, I stressed very importantly that 2021 is going to be a better year for the township. We have a lot of strategic goals and strategic planning, and I sincerely think it's going to happen. And I've been following Wall Street journals, articles and everything. There's going to be economic rebound after this pandemic is kind of under control, the vaccination, everything come in play. Then I'm looking forward. 2021 is going to be a prosperous year for the Colerain Township. And you guys, John, Dane and Matt, and it's a fantastic team we're going to play shaping this 2021. Then, like Dan, as you mentioned, we need that our residents' participation in the meeting. We'll make sure that our residents will participate in the meetings. Yet we still follow the governor's gatherings orders, and hopefully it'll relieve a little bit, so people can come and sitting distantly, wearing a mask, come to attend the meeting. I'm looking forward for 2021, Dan, and you're right, and we'll have our residents' participation in the meetings. Thank you.
Yes, Raj. Turn your mic off. I think you're going to make a fine president. I think Trustee Wallert's going to make a fine vice president. As I said at the beginning of the meeting, with this form of government with just 3 elected trustees, I think it's important that we all 3 have been elected. Therefore, I think the office should rotate, and I would certainly, if I'm fortunate enough to be on this board a year from now, I would certainly support rotating that presidency to Matt Wallert if he's interested at the time, and just have that rotation continue every year. I've really enjoyed being president. It's an honor. I'm very humbled by it, but I do think that government is best when that transfers, and otherwise it becomes stale. And like I said, if I would love to do it for another year, but I just think it's better that it rotates. So congratulations, Matt and Raj.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to add a couple final comments to this, put on your seatbelts. I tend to be a little bit of aggressive, and 2021 is going to be aggressive. Hopefully we can get out of this pandemic. We have to exercise some patience, which is difficult to do, I know. But there's a lot on the agenda that we want to get done for 2021, including a lot of economic development, and including a lot of just basic issues like trash. We haven't forgotten about it. We're still working on it. I spoke to Mr. Mills last week, and he's ordering, I don't even know what they're called, the tongs, the trash tongs, for people that want to volunteer. We're pushing this and putting every effort we can into kind of reinventing Colerain. I also want to thank very quickly all those that personally reached out to me the last month as many of you know, I came down with COVID time too. I'm lucky I got it both times, and now there's a new strain, so I guess I have to be careful again. At Thanksgiving, and it was much rougher the second time than it was the first. And thank you for everybody's thoughts and prayers and those that reached out. I've also spoken to Chief Denny briefly. To wrap up my December, I was a victim of identity fraud when someone filed for unemployment compensation in my name, and then it expanded in several of my family members as well. I found out that this is a pretty big issue, and I've been working with Chief Denny, and we're going to get some kind of public service announcement, but let's just put it this way for now. If you get something in the mail from unemployment and you haven't filed for it and it says you have a new password, you've got an issue, call Chief Denny. He'll walk you through it. And if you get a card, it's a Reliant card from U.S. Bank, and you haven't applied for unemployment, somebody has in your name and you need to contact Chief Denny and go through the process. It is a form of identity theft. They have your social security number. They have your driver's license number. In fact, I cannot access my own unemployment records now because my driver's license doesn't match the one that's on file, and I cannot establish my identity. Either needs to be something filed at the federal level with the FTC, and it's a serious ballgame. It's happening to a lot of Americans as a result of the loosening of restrictions for unemployment. So if you get a letter you don't recognize, if you get a debit card that you think, what is this? Call right away. Chief Denny can take care of this. I think the Colerain Police Department's well versed on this. They've taken a number of complaints already. But we will work on something a little bit more specific, but from to bridge you until then, I want to make sure that people understand, you know, a number of people felt, oh, they got this debit card, it must be my stimulus. And they called up and they listed all their information. Now their identity is completely compromised. So with that, we will have a fantastic 2021, and I look forward to serving you another year, and I love what I do up here, so thank you so much. Are there any motions at this point?
I would motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I will second. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Baker, did you want to, I skipped over you. Do you have a, okay. All right, we will call for a vote.
Mr. Rajagopal? Aye. Mr. Unger?
Aye.
Mr. Waller?
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:42. Thank you very much.